We have about 35 signups, so we'll wait for another few minutes before we get started.
Turn on the.
Wonder why we're not.
Did you sign?
We're just waiting for Henry to join us. He said he was joining. Tucker, I like your lily. Okay, well, I'm going to get started on our introductions here. Good evening. Welcome to Advancing Home Improvements for a Better Climate. My name is David Bliss, and I serve as co-chair of the Melrose Energy Commission. I just got a pop-up from Henry. I'll be back in a second.
All right, folks. David, I'm here. Sorry, I'm a little late.
Oh, the long lost soul.
Yeah,
All right, you found the link.
too many links.
All right, here we go. Apologies. Good evening and welcome to Advancing Home Improvements for a Better Climate. My name is David Bliss and I serve as co-chair of the Melrose Energy Commission, a group of citizens formed in 2005 to help the city and its residents, businesses, and nonprofits save energy and reduce their carbon footprint. Our volunteers have led significant energy efficiency program, including the Melrose Energy Challenge in 2011 and 2016, the Clean Heating and Cooling Outreach Program, Heat Smart, Cool Smart in 2020, and the Solarized Mass and Big Roof Solar programs, resulting in over 500 solar installations in Melrose. Please visit our website at melroseenergy.org to learn more about us and the work that we do. And I'll plug in that we do have a meeting this Thursday evening if you care to join us. There's more information on the city website for joining that meeting. Earlier this month, under the leadership of my co-chair, Gary Lamoth, the Energy Commission and Zero Waste Melrose launched a new Melrose Climate Action Platform, developed and maintained by our partner, Mass Energize. This website allows users to see and adopt specific actions to reduce their carbon footprint. You can take action at home, at work, and in daily life, along with your family, neighbors, and Melrose friends to prepare for a changing climate and help reduce climate impacts. The Climate Action Platform is also designed to capture nearly all the actions taken by our community and quantify the associated carbon reductions. Melrose Climate Action is not just about individuals reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. It's fundamentally about working together to speed our progress on emission reductions and create a more livable, sustainable community. To learn more about this emerging program, visit melroseclimateaction.org. And Elena is going to post those in the chat for your reference. The format for tonight's webinar includes an introduction by Martha Grover, Sustainability Manager for the City of Melrose, followed by presentations on the topics of energy efficiency programs, the value of green homes, and net zero energy retrofits for homes. I will introduce our panelists at the beginning of each of those presentation segments. Please enter questions for the presenters in the chat window, and we will review these in a Q&A session after the presentations. If time allows and everyone behaves themselves, we'll take live questions by raised hands. Martha, I'll turn things over to you now.
All right, I found the unmute button. Thank you, everyone. And Martha Grover here, the City of Melrose Sustainability Manager. And first and foremost, I wanted to thank the Melrose Energy Commission for organizing tonight's event. MEC and the city have worked together for over 15 years to help the community of Melrose make progress on energy efficiency and clean energy initiatives. And we have a lot of proud accomplishments over those 15 years. The latest initiative that David mentioned, launched on Earth Day, is very ambitious, but we're in good company with the state and other communities across the Commonwealth. The ambitious project that we've launched on Friday is a roadmap to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 in order to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. We're going to do this in 3 major sectors: buildings, which we're talking about tonight, transportation, and the electric grid. Building emissions in Melrose represent 61% of our total overall community emissions. So that's why we're starting with buildings and why we're going to continue to talk about buildings and homes in Melrose. Tonight's panel presentation is the first of many future education efforts to provide homeowners with the tools and information you need to make your home as energy efficient as possible, and then to electrify it by installing highly efficient electric, space and water heating equipment, cooking equipment, etc. So over the next, definitely over the next 3 years, but for the next probably good 30 years, we'll be rolling out all kinds of new programs with funding assistance, including the Melrose Energy Challenge 3.0, supported by funding from National Grid, more outreach and education opportunities, and individual energy coaching assistance to help you navigate the transition from fossil fuels. You can read about our net zero action plan on the mayor's page. There's a link to the plan on the mayor's page of the City of Melrose website, and we'll be doing more presentations on it over the coming months. But just wanted to say thank you very much to the panelists who are presenting tonight for your time and expertise, and also, as I started with, the Melrose Energy Commission volunteers who make all of this possible. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Martha. So next up, we have 2 presenters from National Grid. Chris Lavallee is a senior energy efficiency program strategy analyst. His role is to work collaboratively with stakeholders across Massachusetts to identify ways to improve weatherization incentives for homeowners, renters, and landlords. Prior to National Grid, Chris worked at ICF for 5 years on federal energy efficiency programs with the EPA and the Department of Energy. He was an EDF Climate Corps Fellow in 2016 and worked for NYSERDA to develop Retrofit New York, a very well-known program. Chris has an MS in Climate Science and Policy from Bard College in New York and a BA in Sociology and Environmental Studies from St. Michael's College in Vermont. Melanie Coen is a lead residential program strategy analyst in the customer energy management team at National Grid. In her role, she leads the development of residential program design and implementation strategies for National Grid's energy efficiency programs in Massachusetts, with a large focus on heat pump market transformation strategy. Melanie received a Master of Public Administration in Environmental Science and Policy from Columbia University and a Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Studies from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Take it away, team.
Okay, great. I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay. Okay. Can everybody see the screen? You're great. Okay. So thank you so much for having us today. I realize the date is wrong here, just pay attention to that. In today's presentation, we're going to give just a high level overview of who is MassSave, and then we're going to walk through some of our residential energy efficiency programs And then I think we're gonna take questions in the chat and try to answer them later. So who is Mass Save? I think that, this can get confusing to a lot of people. Mass Save is a consortium of local electric and natural gas utilities and energy efficiency service providers. So we're not Mass Save isn't an entity, but an umbrella brand that what we call ourselves either the Mass Save sponsors or the program administrators. And our goal is to help residents and businesses across Massachusetts save money and energy. So what are our energy efficiency programs? Well, as many of you may know, we filed our new 3-year plan in October. It was quite an undertaking, a year, maybe more than a year of planning. And this plan is slightly different from previous plans in a couple of ways. So our priorities are really electrification, workforce development, and equity. And we're really trying to reach our underserved customer segments like renters, our English isolated customers, small business, and our low and moderate income customers. In our residential portfolio, we have quite a few ways to participate. We've got our coordinated delivery, our home retrofit program. This is more of a facilitated approach. And then we've got our retail program. This is our HVAC and appliance program, and this is a less facilitated approach, what we call our downstream rebate program, and we'll get into more detail on that later. And then we've got our new construction, renovations and additions program, our income eligible program, and then we've got financing opportunities, and I can't even see what the, hold on, what's good, sorry. Here we go. And our education programs, including a lot of workforce development. I'm gonna pass the mic over to Chris, who's gonna cover some of the details of the residential coordinated delivery program.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Yeah, so the residential coordinated delivery program, I think a lot of people, when they think of Mass Save, they might think of this program of, an energy specialist coming to your home and doing an audit and just really giving you a report of how your home uses energy and where you can identify some areas of savings opportunities. So this is just I won't go through all of these right here, but we have the residential coordinated delivery, or RCD. There's also an income eligible program, which is very similar, but run by a different org, and it's more generous incentives because of the income eligible component. But they're more or less the same thing in terms of someone coming to your home and doing an audit and helping you to figure out how you can save energy. So next slide.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I know we've got a tech. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. It's a little delayed.
All right. All right. So so within this program, so it starts with a no-cost home energy assessment. And this is for renters or homeowners in any building type. So, we really want to ensure that everyone who's paying their utility bills is able to also participate in energy efficiency programs. And we've also had some flexibility. It can be done virtually on the phone or via video or in person. So over the past couple of years in particular, lots of these home energy assessments have been done virtually. And the assessment, it primarily gets into, how you can save energy, but it also, you're looking at health and safety. The energy specialist is looking at different ways that you can just really improve your home, like from even things like water fixtures, programmable thermostats, to better manage your energy. Next.
Sorry. I don't understand. Oh.
All right, we've got
I
it.
don't know what I did. I'm pressing a lot of buttons, but that worked. Go ahead.
All right, so so the energy specialists, it's going to end with some recommendations for efficiency improvements. So this could be talking about, insulation and air sealing, HVAC system upgrades that you could potentially do, and really just looking at all the ways that your home uses energy and how you can make improvements, and then provide you, of course, with some information about the incentives, rebates, and financing options that you have to make these upgrades. So next, find the magic button yet?
Okay.
There it is. Okay. So you'll notice that these incentives, they're very generous. So no cost air sealing, also no cost for insulation for rental units, for units in 2 to 4 family buildings where all of the eligible units move forward at the same time, and also moderate income households. And then for market rate, it's 75% off of approved installation, so still very generous. So this is for market rate, so above the moderate income, and also for owner-occupied units in those same like 2 to 4 family buildings, but who are acting on their own. So there's an incentive there for them to meet up with their neighbors and try to get everyone to participate together. And also new to this program, and Melanie can talk more to this, but there's a $500 bonus for weatherization and heat pumps. So these are two things that really pair well together. We want people who weatherize to also consider upgrading their HVAC systems. And so if you do weatherization, you can not only save energy, but you're going to reduce your heating and cooling demand. And so getting a heat pump is definitely it's definitely a very efficient technology, but you're also going to lower your overall demand when you weatherize first, and then you may be able to right size it to a smaller heating demand, so then you can save even more. So next slide. And another thing that we are considering, or that we have considered over the years, is looking at these pre-weatherization barriers. So sometimes you have older homes that may have issues like excessive moisture or asbestos, or what's pictured here is knob and tube wiring, which you don't want to put insulation next to kind of those exposed wires. And so we've come up with an incentive for moderate income barrier mitigation up to $7,000. So for low income, these barrier mitigations are covered. Now for moderate income, we have this new $7,000 incentive, or up to $7,000. And then there's a couple of the $250 ones for the market rate. Next slide. All right, and this is just a brief overview. I won't go too into detail. I think I've already touched on a lot of this, but moderate income incentives, that's just an area that we've really been trying to focus more on in this 3-year plan. So we're finalizing the details of our income verification process and the HVAC incentives that will be available in May. And then I talked about the 100% coverage and the pre-weatherization barrier.
Thanks, Chris. Before I move on from this slide, I just I want to point out the very generous incentives that we're going to be offering for moderate income customers. And in order for a moderate income customer to qualify for one of these enhanced incentives, they will need to get income verified, complete weatherization if there is opportunity, and then they can access the enhanced moderate income HVAC incentives, which are new for this plan and will be available hopefully in May. Okay, my computer just doesn't want to work here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to briefly talk about our income eligible coordinated delivery program. these programs are, we partner with community action program agencies. We have a long history of working, they have a long history of working in the communities. They already have established relationships. So they really are the face of our programs and really on the ground working with our customers. I wanted to just show, the income ranges for income eligible. It is below 60% of the state median income. And again, those customers will need to get income verified to participate in that program and be eligible for those rebates. And then for the moderate income, it's 60 to 80% of the state median income. And of course, that changes with the number of household members. So in these programs, 100% of the cost of energy efficiency upgrades is covered through the program. This includes insulation and air sealing, heating and cooling replacements, including heat pumps, appliances, and then some minor repairs and pre-weatherization barriers. So this is really a wonderful program, and it's also a facilitated approach. It's that coordinated delivery where someone is working with the customer throughout the process. And again, here we will cover the cost of, or the sponsors of Mass Save will cover the cost of pre-weatherization barrier mitigation. So moving on to residential retail. There are 3 ways in which you can participate in this program. You can install an energy efficiency measure, fill out a rebate application and mail it in, or you can do it online and you can receive the rebate. We have an online marketplace. I've included the web address here. You can purchase directly from that marketplace and receive an instant discount at the point of purchase. And we also have instant rebates where you can save instantly. You basically can enter some details, be verified as a customer of one of the participating utilities or energy efficiency providers. You'll get a QR code and you can go into a store and purchase one of the eligible pieces of equipment, and they'll just scan your code at checkout and you get an instant discount. So here, I think everyone's probably wondering about our heat pump program. We are offering very generous incentives. And we have also, in this new plan, we are now allowed to offer incentives for customers to switch from gas heating to air source heat pumps. So that's new in this term. So for customers who want to install an air source heat pump and they are displacing either fully or partially their fossil fuel or electric resistant heating system, they are eligible for either $1,250 per ton for a partial home displacement, or for a whole home, it's $10,000 per home. Air to water heat pumps, this is by nature a whole home conversion, so that's $10,000 per home. And then ground source heat pumps, for partial, that's $2,000 per ton and $15,000 per home if you're fully replacing. We, as part of this new plan, we established what we're calling a heat pump installer network, or an HPIN. And we are, taking this year, the year of 2022, to really build up that installer network. And we hope to kind of close off the network, not close it off to contractors, but close off the rebates to only be available to customers who use a participating Mass Save heat pump installer. So that will hopefully begin in 2023. And that list is a searchable list. It's online at masssave.com. So, I mentioned in the previous slide, we have whole home heat pump rebates. In order to qualify for that whole home rebate of either $10,000 or $15,000, depending on the technology, customers must demonstrate that their home is sufficiently weatherized. As Chris mentioned before, weatherization is very important to your home and the sizing of the equipment. So when the HVAC contractor comes into your home to, size that equipment, it's going to be what we call right sized. If the home is adequately weatherized. So in order to qualify for that whole home heat pump rebate, customers need to either complete a virtual or on-site home energy assessment. If there are weatherization recommendations, have to follow through and complete those recommendations. And then of course, install the heat pump. And there's a specific form that customers will have to fill out. It's a self-attestation saying that you don't have to remove your central heating system or your fossil fuel heating system, but will sign something saying you will only use it in emergency situations. And then, as Chris mentioned earlier, we are rolling out a bonus. This is for customers who are partially displacing their central heating system. If customers complete their weatherization prior to a partial home heat pump installation, they will receive a bonus form and can get an extra $500 for kind of bundling those two things together. And I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but we do still offer, our fossil fuel rebates. There is a slight change from previous years where we are offering an enhanced incentive for customers upgrading from a non-condensing system to a condensing system. And in order to receive that, enhanced higher rebate, we will need to verify your pre-existing equipment to make sure that you're upgrading from a non-condensing. And if not, if you're unable to do that, or you are upgrading from a condensing to a condensing system, you still are eligible for an incentive, but a much lower incentive. And here for water heaters, we are offering heat pump water heaters to customers who heat with any fuel type. However, this has moved to what we call a midstream program, where the incentive actually gets paid to the contractor, and the contractor should be deducting that $750 from your invoice. So I like to mention that just so customers are cognizant of that and should be looking out for that deduction on the invoice from the contractor. Ooh, sorry. And then I just wanted to mention a couple of newer educational resources that and tools that we have online on masssave.com. We have launched what we are calling a residential heating comparison calculator. You can input your home characteristics and your zip code, and you'll be able to compare different heating system upgrades and the cost savings, carbon emission savings, and energy savings, and you'll get to compare those. They'll just be next to each other and get to compare those. It's really intended to help customers choose the upgrade that's right for them, and make an informed decision. We've also rolled out heating and cooling consultations. This is a no-cost virtual consultation. It's with a technical specialist. It's really intended for customers to be able to speak with a specialist or an expert that's non-biased. They're not trying to sell them anything. So you can talk about, your home characteristics, what you're interested in, and get some guidance about transitioning to a new heating system. We've also refreshed our website a bit to provide a little bit more clear and concise information on the benefits and considerations of heat pumps. And we also have customer brochures that home energy specialists, who are the people in your home doing your home energy assessment, can leave behind for customers to teach them more about heat pumps. Let's see. And then I just wanted to quickly mention other product rebates. We have rebates for measures like smart thermostats, clothes dryers, room cleaners. And then we've got our recycling program. This is where you can actually be paid for someone to come and pick up your old but working refrigerator or freezer. And then we also offer a rebate for dehumidifier recycling. There are events that take place around the state. And then you can also recycle your dehumidifier at the same time as your refrigerator or freezer is being picked up. And then I'm excited to tell you about our new product rebates that are very new. It's and also part of our electrification effort. It's for lawn equipment. So, you know, we all know how loud some of those leaf blowers can get. I know my husband loves his, but it's loud. So, and also, you know, we use gasoline and then there are carbon emissions. So we're offering incentives for battery powered lawn equipment, including leaf blowers, chainsaws, trimmers, lawnmowers. And then we're also offering rebates for windows. So this is if you're upgrading from a single pane to an Energy Star triple pane. It's $75 a window, and you'll again have to be pre-qualified and have either a virtual or an in-home energy assessment, just so we can make sure that you are upgrading from a single to triple pane. And then finance, finally, this is my last section. We offer a 0% heat loan. So it's 0% financing to qualified applicants up to $25,000 for 7 years. And I know it's called a heat loan, which is a little bit misleading. It's an acronym for something, I believe, and was established a long time ago. It's not just for heating measures, but you can finance any of our approved efficiency measures. And new this year, I wonder if I have it now. New in this term, we're offering a separate pool of $25,000 for customers who are installing heat pumps, because we want to make sure that customers have access to financing, even if they've used the loan in the past. So thank you for listening to us talk about our programs, and here is our contact information, and in case you have any questions. And that's it.
Thank you, Melanie. Next up, we have Craig Foley. He's a leading advocate or national voice in the real estate industry. He is a lead green associate and chief sustainability officer for LAER Realty Partners. He's also the team co-founder of Rethink 39. Rethink 39 is devoted to lowering 39% of the US energy consumption that's attributed to the built environment, and believes they can be part of the solution with every transaction closed. Greg, you're up.
Thank you very much, David. Just bringing up my screen. Assuming everybody can see this, right? Melanie, I just wanted to say, so I own a 1890-ish Victorian in Melrose, and we've committed to, we're in the midst of a deep energy retrofit right now. We used to have natural gas in the house, which is still there because the workers need it, but I can't wait to shut off my natural gas account, just saying, because we've switched to ductless mini splits. We've switched to an induction cooktop, which we're really excited about. My wife is a phenomenal cook. Brand new kitchen, 2 new bathrooms going in. So it's a big project in heat pump hot water heater. And we're taking advantage of that $10,000 whole house rebate. I mean, what a deal. I had natural gas in this 1890s Victorian, no AC. Obviously, I'm not going to do this kind of level of retrofit without adding AC these days. I mean, particularly with the changing climate, getting warmer and warmer. We wouldn't be dumb enough to do that. And so, I was looking at, if I were going to put in a new natural gas high efficiency system, add an AC system, I mean, you're talking 30 grand pretty easily, right? Instead, I'm going with heat pumps that supply the heating and cooling. And with that really aggressive rebate, it is an absolute no-brainer to go this route right now, and we're spending extra money on insulation, making sure that we're air sealed properly. So the National Grid programs are phenomenal. Thanks so much. I'm going to touch a little bit upon, kind of the why behind these programs too, and what's moving all of this along. Some of my information David's already told you about. I do a lot of work at the National Association of Realtor level. So NAR is the largest trade organization in the United States. And I've been at the one of the leaders at this intersection of real estate and sustainability with our trade organization, which has a pretty powerful policy wing down in DC and a lot of active lobbyists, and they really work, with our members driving the boat on what these policies should look like. So I'm really excited to say that NAR has really moved the ball forward at this intersection of real estate and sustainability in some pretty exciting ways. I also have had the opportunity to work with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So the two largest, that's 78% of the mortgage market in the United States. And they're also very, very engaged right now, not only in looking at green mortgage products, but also the other part of this is their risk to a changing climate in their portfolios and what this is going to mean to them. And I'm fortunate enough to be working on a financial climate risk work group right now at NAR that's looking at these issues, what this is going to mean for homeowners, and engaging Fannie and Freddie directly with what this means for their mortgage portfolios as well. So I think that many times, just kind of big picture stuff, right? I think that many times consumers think, well, if the grid just got greener, we would solve all the problems and everything would be fine. And, that's true, but we would have had to start on that at least 20 years ago. We're really behind the 8 ball in that element. The grid is not going to solve our problems, even though in Massachusetts, under the renewable portfolio standards, Massachusetts utilities and energy providers have to increase their renewable energy demand by 2% a year, but I think that's only 18% right now. So the grid isn't going to get us there fast enough, is what this comes down to. We've got some really big challenges in front of us, and if you believe the climate science, it's really this decade that we're 2+ years into already, that we really have to step up in a big way to get this solved. So the good thing about this is there's two sides of the utility meter. There's the source of the power, the supply of the power, which the 350 large power plants in New England supply. And then there's the end user side, the demand side of the meter. We have so much opportunity in front of us to participate as individual consumers, to be good neighbors, right? To be part of a solution. And when my team talks about the 39% of US energy consumption, the Rethink 39 team, and we can be part of that solution with every real estate transaction that we're dealing with, this is exactly what we're talking about. You can see that building operations, residential and commercial buildings are a big part of the energy challenge. And then there's the embodied energy with new construction buildings, the 11% down here. The combination of those two nationally, 39%, in most of the cities and towns in Boston, I hear and heard it again tonight, we're usually at 60 to 70% because we're in such a condensed area. The buildings are really the biggest problem, the biggest challenge out there. And that's kind of leads into the second part of this myth, is that, I think many people also believe, if we switch to EVs, we'll be all set. And electric vehicles have to be part of the solution. There's no question about it. But when you look at the challenges that buildings bring to the table, we've got to step up, and each and every one of us has an opportunity, particularly with these incredible incentives that National Grid is offering right now, to be part of a solution. You don't have to do what I'm doing, which is a deep energy retrofit. My wife and I are literally out of our house for about 9 months while this goes on. But you can do the little things, air sealing, insulation work, and certainly converting to heat pumps would be a big, big plus. On top of that, just so you all know, where the building code in Massachusetts changes every 3 years. And Massachusetts has had, it has really been a leader. They've stayed at the top of the building code. That doesn't mean that every state here in the Northeast does so. I think New Hampshire's back in IECC 2012. Our current code cycle is IECC 2018. This next code cycle coming up has had a real push by consumers, and Governor Baker ended up signing into law something that the legislature passed in March 2021, the Next Gen Climate Plan. And in that climate plan is the next nudge on the building code for new construction, residential and commercial real estate. The big nudge this time is not only are we advancing the building codes and stretch code communities, but there's going to be a new option for a net zero energy stretch code that communities can adopt. I'm hopeful that Melrose is one of the first communities to adopt this net zero energy stretch code. I personally would love to see that as a consumer. It's part of the driver for what I'm doing to my home, to be honest with you. But you can see it's a fairly aggressive jump in the code. And you can clearly see that the all electric home is being incentivized. That HERS thing, HERS 45, HERS 42 is a HERS rating. It's an energy asset rating for a home. And it's kind of like your golf score. The lower, the better, with the holy grail being a HERS score of 0, which is a net zero energy home. And you can see that the HERS score for fossil fuel properties is a little lower and a little bit more rigorous. And not only that, at least the early version of this, we don't know what the final version of this is going to be, but the early version of this would also require solar on roofs where it's feasible as part of the net zero energy stretch code. Or you can go with this new certification process called Passive House. You probably all have heard of LEED. Passive House is considered the most rigorous of the building envelope green certifications that are out there. I've sold Passive House homes. They're out there in the marketplace right now, and this would definitely move the market forward. So just so you know, this stuff is active here in Massachusetts. We're lucky to be in a state where there's a real political will to move this ball forward. And we can all participate that. And certainly new construction is going to be stretching this. It's going to be moving all of us. And again, that's why I'm making the choices. My wife's making the choices in our 1890s Victorian to move in the same direction, because frankly, I see this is exactly where the market is moving and where it needs to move. So let's talk a little bit about the value proposition of a net zero energy home, what that actually looks like. This is a home in Salisbury, Massachusetts. You can see that there's a power plant on the rooftop. The power plant is in the form of solar PV photovoltaic panels that's producing electricity for that home. So let's talk a little bit about what a net zero energy home is. So it's built to what we call high performance standards. You know, many realtors will call it, well, it's a green home. I tend not to use that selling these homes and marketing these homes and valuing these homes. A better term I find in the marketplace is that they're high performance homes. They literally do perform better than the standard home out there. So it's built with a much better building envelope. Now, you can say that with this net zero energy stretch code thing coming up here, maybe all new construction in many of the communities in the Commonwealth will already meet this standard, which is pretty exciting to me to see this evolving so quickly. A second element of a net zero energy home is it supplies its own power with some source of renewable energy. And from most homeowners in Massachusetts, that's solar PV, but Melanie and Christopher mentioned ground source heat pumps as well. Geothermal heat pumps, as they're commonly called, but heat pumps that come from the ground, that's another source that could be used. But there's also homes that are built well enough that may not have the renewables applied yet. They're wired for solar PV, and that's a net zero energy ready home. And that's certainly the type of home that you're going to see with these net zero energy stretch code communities coming up. And then the third element of this is it's a home that produces as much energy as it uses on an annual basis. And that's where you get to that holy grail number of a HERS score of 0. It's a home that produces as much energy as it uses on an annual basis. Now, I've sold condos back in 2017, 2018 in the Fort Hill section of Boston that had 4 condos that had HERS scores -14 to -23. So they were producing more energy than they were using. They were regenerative to the grid. And that was a really interesting value proposition when I was selling those homes, because the cost for living in these homes is 0. And on top of that, the utility companies pay you to live in the homes, but particularly under the program that was effective at that point for the solar rebate, which was called the SREC program, lasted for 10 years. And that program was strong enough that for the homeowners that purchased the solar PV on these units, they had the option to purchase or not. Their homeowner association fees, we projected, and we seem to be on track, we're going to be paid for the first 10 years of their ownership. That's pretty compelling. You know, effectively no utility costs, and you get a check from the utility company that pays your condo fees for the first 10 years of ownership. It really made the selling of the home pretty darn easy, I have to say. So let's just do some quick math here, right, to help you understand the value proposition. And this is something, even though, you know, you may ask your realtor, does this stuff get valued in the appraisal? Many of them will shake their heads, or they don't understand, or they'll roll their eyes at that. I can tell you absolutely, and I'm going to show you the process for how this gets valued in the appraisal and lending community. But let's just do some quick numbers. So, you know, this last year, natural gas, you know, oil prices went up, propane prices went up quite a bit. We all know that. But give me a rough idea of how much you spent from October to March for heating your home. You know, and I'm not going to green shame anybody. You can write these down. I'm not going to ask for any numbers at the end, but just write down this, and I'm going to ask for a couple more numbers that we're going to add up to talk about the value proposition for these net zero energy homes. So a rough idea, how much did you spend this last heating season for heating your home? The second number, you know, for National Grid, you know, their price per kilowatt has been jumping, right? How much did you spend for electricity on your home? And, you know, if you have AC, obviously in the summer months, that price goes up. But for the last year, give me a rough idea of what the price was you spent on your utility bills for electrifying your home. So you got one number, heating costs, and then you've got your electricity costs. Now, this third one's going to be a little weird, but go with me on this. How much, now I'm a realtor, right? And I know there's another realtor on this as well, Brianna McGrath. She's part of my Rethink 39 team, but I'm driving all over the place all the time. How much money do you spend for gas for one of your cars this last year? So do you take the car to the gas station once a week, 3 times every 2 weeks? Gas prices have gone up, rough idea, monthly, multiply that by 12. Did you get all that? David, I know this is a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you, but stay with me here, okay? 3 numbers. Now add all of those numbers up. What does it equal? Is it 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 bucks, right? It's serious money that we're talking about for utility costs in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So these guys, they have this net zero energy home. They have a power plant on their rooftop, right? They have heating and cooling, air source heat pumps, just like the ones I'm installing. Heat pump, hot water heater. They've got 2 kids. They take showers all of the time, right? Just like all of ours do. They don't turn off the lights very regularly, like we all should. You know, they're kids. I mean, they're in high school. That's what happens. And they have an electric vehicle in their garage that they're powering off this power plant in their rooftop as well. And they spent $434, not for a single month, but for the whole year, for all of their heating, all of their cooling, all of their lighting, an electric vehicle, all their gadgets and appliances, all their hot water. $434. What would you do with the extra $7,500 a year if that was in your pocket? You know, I mean, I'm approaching retirement, put it in a retirement fee. My youngest is just graduating from college, use that money for college expenses. I mean, now we can actually, you know, my wife and I can travel. We're hopefully past the COVID thing. We could just take a nice trip with it, right? But it's real money that's out there that we're talking about. And from an appraisal perspective, that is what matters. Now, there's a lot of other benefits that we can sell as a realtor talking about high performance homes, health benefits living in these homes, the comfort of living in these homes. They're not like the homes you rented in college, or, you know, that one room was always wicked cold and one room was in the winter, wicked hot in the summer. These homes are super comfortable. They're healthy to live in, but the utility cost savings is something that an appraiser can actually value in the marketplace. And I would argue a listing broker needs to be taking this into account, the contributory value of these types of improvements and what it means to successful home ownership, passing it on to the new buyer, right? So I will say to you that these elements are in fact recognized in the marketplace right now today, but there's a lot of ifs that go along with it. The first big if, I think, is that you need an NAR green designated agent. This is a 2-day class for realtors to take to be educated on exactly what we're talking about right now, the process of valuing high performance homes. And I'll put this link. This was an article that I wrote for Building Energy magazine a few years ago about the process of high performance home valuation. There is a process. It works. We know Massachusetts appraisers and lenders recognize this process, but it starts with getting an agent that's knowledgeable and competent in this part of the marketplace. The second part of this is we can't pick a specific appraiser anymore for good reasons. Everything that happened with the mortgage meltdown and Dodd-Frank, we are no longer allowed to pick a specific appraiser. But as your listing broker, right? If Henry Maclean is building a high performance home and asks me to, if he's doing a spec home, ask me to list it, I can demand a qualified appraiser. I can't pick the specific appraiser, but I can demand a qualified appraiser. And we have 10 or 12 appraisers in Massachusetts that have gone through the Valuation of Sustainable Buildings program that the Appraisal Institute offers. That's 3 very rigorous courses that those appraisers have spent time, energy, and money to add valuation of sustainable buildings as an accreditation for them. We can, in fact, I would say as a listing agent, if I'm not demanding a qualified appraiser for a home with high performance assets, I'm not doing you any favor at all. In fact, I think I'm being really immoral in terms of representing you in the transaction. There's a document that's needed by those Valuation of Sustainable Buildings program. I'll put a link for the document in the chat when I finish, but it's called the Residential Green and Energy Efficient Addendum. So if you Google Appraisal Institute Green Addendum, this will pop up. The latest version is November 2019. This was developed in 2011 because I'm getting into the weeds here on appraisals, but the appraisal form for residential appraisers use is called the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, the URAR. And there's one line item in it that says energy efficient buildings. Well, imagine if I'm selling a LEED Platinum certified home with, a 10.78 kW solar PV system, ultra tight building envelope with heat pumps, giving you the same kind of metrics that we're talking about. That energy efficient line item is irrelevant. This Residential Green and Energy Efficient Addendum is a 5-page document that can be filled out by the developer, by the solar PV provider, by the homeowner if they're aware of this stuff, or there's a certification scheme called Pearl Certification that fills these out for you as well, particularly for existing homes. So this document, this 5-page document, is critical for when the appraiser shows up at the property, Wednesday at 3 after it's under agreement. I meet the appraiser and I give them the Residential Green Energy Efficient Addendum. They need that document to create the argument to the bank underwriter about the additional contributory value. So there is a process. And if you will have a home with solar PV, if you own it, you can also get additional contributory value using this tool called the PV Value tool. You can find it at pvvalue.com. Again, listing agents that have gone through the green designation understand how to use this tool, but we can value the rest of the life of the system based on 25 years of useful life and what the energy savings will be. And we can have that turn up in the appraisal or the list price. This should be part of the discussion between a listing agent and a homeowner with host-owned solar PV. So I'll put some of these links, like I said, in the chat. I guess what I want to leave you with, and I'll put more information in there about this, how we value this stuff accurately in the marketplace. But, you know, we've done this before. Energy efficiency is not new. Look, you know, when we were fighting the Nazis in World War II, we were all on board with conserving oil, gas, for the war. I think we need to essentially declare a war on carbon right now. That's how serious it is. This is where we are for my children, for our grandchildren. This is a serious, serious issue that we have an opportunity. It's not like we're waiting for some new technology to come down the road. The technology is here right now, and National Grid is giving us money to be able to make these improvements and move in the direction that we have to move. So thank goodness, National Grid, for all the work that you're doing. Some resources. David, I can certainly send this back to you. I don't care if it's shared. You can send it out to people if they want it. And I'll throw some links in the chat. Like I said, that's it for me.
That was really great. Thank you. Let's see, Henry. How are you?
Hey,
So for you, those who don't know him, Henry Maclean is an architect, educator, builder, who began his career as a project manager with a number of large architectural firms in Boston before he started his own firm, Timeless Architecture, in 1988. He has been promoting and teaching green design for 32 years, served on the faculty of Wentworth Institute of Technology, and taught and developed ongoing curricula at the Boston Architectural College. He served as co-chair of the Boston Society of Architects Committee on the Environment and has presented at numerous conferences organized by the Boston Society of Architects, Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, and the Boston Area Solar Energy Association. His office has been located in Milton, Mass. Since 1997, where he's been an active member of the Sustainable Melrose, Sustainable Milton, and served on the Town of Milton's Alternate Energy Committee. Henry and I go back a while. We worked at one of those large Boston architectural offices, and he was into sustainability when I was still, you know, probably shoveling coal or something. I don't know. But take it away, Henry. Thank you.
thank you, David. And thank you, Greg. It's great to see you. And it's been a while. Let me share a screen here, I guess. Let me see how to do that. Everybody see that? Yep, good. So, well, thank you, David, for organizing it, and great to meet the rest of you. And and I'm sorry I didn't catch up on the conversation earlier. But anyway, I've been an architect now for, I guess, 30 or 40 years, and running my own little practice. So I'm going to take you through a bunch of slides, a little bit on the background of my work, and as a builder, which I got to start on before being an architect and a contractor. And a lot of this is from a presentation that I gave as part of a series that we did here in Milton as part of Sustainable Milton. I think there may be a few folks from Sustainable Milton with us tonight. We've been organized for about 15 or 16 years, maybe a little longer. And so we'll catch up on some Milton-centric stuff here, which is very interesting because it's right on the other side of Melrose, of the town. And I never get to Melrose that often, but I have good friends there, including David, and so it's great to be included in this. So a little bit on background. I think the first thing, and previous presenters have all talked about this. If you can't measure something, you can't manage it. And part of my background, it's interesting, I'm going back to Honolulu in another month for my 50th high school reunion. So I grew up there in the 60s, and Honolulu is a really sort of interesting test case because it grew about 33% of the building stock per year for the 10 years, 11 years that I grew up there. So it grew from this town of 100,000 to 500,000 or 600,000 maybe in 10 or 11 years. And in that same time, that green strip in the middle there is the 60s, where we increased the natural gas use by 100%, petroleum use by over 60%. So we're on this amazing curve that, and meanwhile, we have this sort of discrepancy in an issue of equity around the world in terms of who's using energy and who's not. And of course, here we are in the US with the far right there, and in Bangladesh in the far left. And this number in the middle, which is kind of interesting, is part of this group that started this thing called the 2000 Watt Society, which works out to be about 17,500 kilowatt hours per capita per year of all your energy use. Is sort of an interesting metric to follow. And there's more on this online, which you can see here at this link. And I'm sort of been looking at this as I've been, like Craig, I've been working on my own house, which is a 1945 Crosby Colonial here in Milton, and I'll refer to that a little bit later in some of the work that we've been doing, and trying to see where we are in that metric of worldwide. This is
Henry?
yeah.
Henry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you just hit your Zoom button and make that center image a little larger?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Well,
It says Zoom up in the top left there.
view.
No, not view. The one in the middle. 100 says
Okay.
100%.
100%. Yeah. What do I go to? 200?
I don't know. Well, that's maybe a little bit too big.
How about full size? Let me just see here if that's not doing it. Format and fill screen. Sorry about that.
That's
Yeah, if you want to get I'd like
that's
to.
bigger. If you make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
That good?
Yeah, good.
Great.
Thank you.
So yeah, and here's the reverse curve of what's going on with as we're getting rid of all this carbon. As Greg said, it's become an issue for so the whole world. We're focused on this, and there's a lot of political, economic issues related to oil and gas that we're seeing play out in wars and everything else in the last 20, 30 years. But so this is the challenge, and this is how it breaks down. And we're now somewhere around 12.6% renewables, in this country. And you still see what we're dealing with this massive movement of from fossil fuels over to renewables. And just a little breakdown in terms of what's going on here, and as it comes down to our little town of Milton, 9,000 homes. It's just a 0.4 sampling of the Commonwealth, and then breaking it up to the 113 million homes in the U.S. So when I got started, some of this I wrote a piece of a book called Defining Sustainability back in the early 90s through the Regional Sustainability Program at Tufts, and started thinking about energy, air quality, food, recycling, water management, transportation, housing. In other words, how do you define sustainability for students to study this? And so we developed this into classes that we taught back into BAC and Wentworth, and this really was the early days of creating LEAD, and their LEAD was leadership in energy and environmental design. That energy is just one of these 5 issues that we have to deal with, right? Air quality, water quality, the earth, the water, the specific sites. And these matrices have essentially worked their way into the thinking of all architecture schools now and the practice, so that we have LEED rated buildings, and this is given way to more exciting developments in Living Building Challenge. And you can look up and see what's going on with the international metrics here, where you break this down into many different categories of similar categories, but including things like equity and beauty as part of our process of trying to make the world a better place to be living in. Here's a shot of what we're all dreading and sort of luckily passed by when Sandy took that right-hand turn and went through New York instead. So we know that we're up against it, and we have to start dealing with resilience and a bunch of other things, because these changes are coming no matter what. I'm sorry, just skipped a slide here. This is getting a little closer to home. My house is actually up here in one of these corners near this little tributary of the Neponset River. Just to go back one slide, this is the Neponset. We know the three rivers in Boston. Here's the Charles, and of course Melrose is up here by the Mystic, I believe. So didn't quite show it all there, but so this gets, I'm not far from this 200-foot flood line, which has gotten up, I think, to that level maybe once since I've been here in 25 years. So a lot of the work that we did back in the about 8 years ago, starting about 8 or 10 years ago, and then through to about 2015 was coming up with a plan for green community for town of Milton. And essentially we had to prove that we were getting to that 20% threshold in order to become a green community and get the funding, and that eventually materialized in over $1 million and continues now with utility efforts that are going in the town as well. So that was a big jump, and in the process of doing that, our little committee went a little further and started a carbon profile of the town, and try to understand what the average energy use was. And other folks, including Paul Eldrenkamp, some of you may know, did a bunch of work with trying to see what the average house what he was working on was. And we came up to roughly the same number of about 70 kBTU per square foot per year. And we'll go through a process here in a second where you can apply this to your own home and get an idea of where you sit in that matrix. But in this process, we realized that about 80% of the, and I think that number came out earlier, 80% of the energy use in building use in the town is from residential. Only 17 is commercial. We have a very small commercial sector here. And then just 2.4% is the town itself, the municipality. And then when you look at overall energy use, it's more like 55, 56% is homes, 30% is transportation, and the rest. So we did a number of workshops and efforts to try to target homes in town, and we realized that it's a long haul, and it's wonderful to see Mass Save sort of taking up and the work you folks are doing there to sort of jump this up a level. But back then we were a little discouraged because part of the process that we had going with Next Step Living when they sort of faded out of existence was that we were only getting about 110 weatherizations a year, and we figured it'd take about 82 years to complete the town. So how do you ramp this up? And it's happening now, and thankfully that we've got an administration, by the grace of God, that understands this instead of the option. So we've also been looking at resiliency. We've got a small grant here that got involved with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Planning Grant, and that started the process. We've been working on community choice aggregation. Now we can buy 100% green energy for all the electricity that you can't make on your house. And I'll talk about my house in a minute about how that works out. But And then we've all been doing work with the greenhouse gas inventory is now underway with the first step for Milton's climate action plan. And KLA Associates is involved. And so that's been a long time coming, and it's exciting. And the select board has approved the funds needed, and this is the first step in that process. We've also done the Solarized Milton program here, which is again, you know, the homes, the 2,000 homes. How many homes did I say there were? I'll go back here a second. There's 20,000. So yeah, there's about 8,000 or 9,000 homes. And out of those, we've got about 181 leads with only 28 homes receiving. But again, that's about 15% of the of what's on the Milton roofs right now, at least was at that time when we had that done. So this is all good, but it's, you know, it's just drops in the bucket, as Craig just mentioned, and we've got to all move a lot faster. So for those of you who haven't measured your energy use in your homes, one good way to do this, and this is getting this energy use intensity or site energy, and EUI is another name for it, BTU per square foot. It's all the same thing. It's how we measure buildings, actually. And when you look up to understand how, you know, where you are in the matrix, BTUs per square foot or EUI is the standard. And so you start with determining what your conditioning areas of the home are. Spaces that you need to keep warm in the winter, cool in the summer. Get your utility bills out and convert everything to BTUs. And then add up all your BTUs per year and divide the figure by the square foot of the house. It's really not that complicated. And this is going to be your energy utilization rate's another name for it, but EUI, it's the same thing. And you're going to find it somewhere between 30,000 and probably 130,000 BTUs per square foot per year. And then to get it into the degree days, which is this degree is the number of heating and cooling days that you have, you can get it down to BTUs per square foot per year per degree day. It's another calculation that's you often see. And then what makes up your carbon footprint? That's always a good thing to know. There's different calculators out there. I'll show you one in a second, but basically it's your home energy use, your automobile. This is Greg mentioned your travel. It's a big deal. You're doing a lot of traveling, and your personal garbage. And you can basically get sources for all these carbon impacts input from different charts. And you basically put that into a calculator. This is part of a household example we did back in 2006 with two other families here in Milton, and the calculator that came out of this was the Cool Climate program back then. It still exists, and there's this wonderful calculator, which the link is right here, and so you can check that out later.
That's actually what we're using in our new website.
Yeah, and it's very thorough, and it gets into travel and home and food and shopping and taking action, and there's a lot of other data that's sort of thrown in there.
Hey, Henry, I'm going to give you a 5-minute
okay,
time to wrap this up, because I'd like to have a couple of questions at least at the end.
Sure. Here are the benchmarks that we've been looking at. A colleague of mine and I went through this and just comparing where we are with energy costs per year, the HERS score that we'll get a chance to talk about. But here is the HERS index, which we want to be down in the 60s and 70s now by code. And as Greg mentioned, you're going to get down to the 40s soon, and we're headed to zero. I'll just show you a few shots of our house. And it's an Energy Star home at this point. We got it from up around 90 when I moved in here 25 years ago, 90 kBTU per square foot, down to about 42. And then with the more recent work that we've done, we've got it down to the low, the high 20s actually, with the heat pump system that we put in. We did a basement situation where we insulated against the wall directly, and we've got about an R40 down in the basement and R60 in the roof. We put solar on about 5.4 kilowatts back in 2018. We got heat recovery up in the attic now with the insulated spray foam there and here, so that gives us a combined. Another really important thing is your ACH 50, which is your leakage rate. You want to get down less than 3 or 4, and so that you can jump into one of these little machines for $1,000 or so, and you can get a heat recovery. So you're bringing in fresh air that's being preheated by the outgoing air. We did the program back then. We didn't get the 10,000. That would have been great. The new program, Mass Save, we were part of the CEC program. It gave us about $4 grand, and so we've got heat pumps on the 3 different floors, and these are the indoor-outdoor units. We've got a special situation with the outdoor eave here, where they built this so you couldn't insulate over the walls. So we've had to insulate the eaves from the outside. We've just put in new paradigm replacement windows. We're in the process of doing that. So it's all making a big difference. The solar in the back. We have invested in, both my wife and I's businesses are now operating on electric vehicles. So we've got basically all this happening. We're looking at solar assisted hot water to put over here to basically, this is New England Solar Hot Water. They get rid of the issue of losing, taking out heat in the winter and use this panel instead. And I've run the numbers on this, and we're now, with the annual home and cars, we're about 23,000 kilowatt hours, which if you go back to that early one, 17.5 per capita, we're under that limit, which is kind of nice. And we're basically, we've got this left in carbon in red. Green is solar and heat pumps. And the BTUs per square foot is down to about 25 now, once we do the solar hot water, which is our next deal on the agenda. I've done a number of these homes over the years, then starting back in the late 90s, Energy Star Homes, home and office back 20 years ago now, but and we calculate all this, that these numbers have been, we've been sort of tracking these. We can get into burning wood in Russian stoves or masonry wood stoves, which are wonderful and they radiate out. Done lead homes up in Ashby, Mass, and let's see, just a few other deep energy retrofits. David's been working hard with me on teaching a class last year at the BAC to make Boston City Hall a deep energy retrofit. We're actually in conversation with the mayor's office again on that, which is exciting. This is another deep energy retrofit that I did back about 10 years ago in Quincy. And a lot of information here from the good folks at Building Energy Design. And I don't have time to go through all this with you all now, but basically, just to get back to a couple of final, here's a detail of what a DER looks like as it's going up. And this was the house that we started with, and this is the house that we ended up with. Added a floor and a half. We saved, for the protocol, we had to save about 50% of the plaster and everything else down. Well, not the plaster, but all the wood. And this is what we ended up with. And just a few more shots here. The mechanical systems, there's write-ups in this on various articles and magazines we've had in the past. I'll show you one other one we did, which is more of a modern version of a home. This was the original house, existing split level, 79 Ranch in Concord. We got approval to take out the trees from the Concord Conservation Commission to put future solar on this. There were a bunch of mature trees that we had to get rid of, and we ran the numbers. Working with Mark Rosenbaum's great program for net zero energy homes that we took back in 2013. And we basically were able to get this back to, and this is a chart sort of looking at that index of all these various projects getting down to this level of, well, they were about 22 So it's interesting because the home that we're doing now, as I mentioned, we're down in the high 20s of BTUs per square foot per year. So it's really possible to take an existing house and work this stuff up. I'll just show you a quick video. This is
Henry, we're gonna have to,
we're out of time. We're good.
yeah, we're like beyond time now.
So sorry. Thank you all. It's always too much to share.
Henry, with those projects that you do for spec homes or redoing, please, I mean, I would love every architect and builder to do this. Fill out that Appraisal Institute Green Residential and Energy Efficient Addendum. Give
Yeah,
it to the homeowner at the completion of the project and say, keep this with your important records. You know, when you
Yeah.
go to sell your home, you're going to need this. And if as a homeowner, you present that AI green addendum to a realtor and they don't know what it is,
yep.
find a new realtor.
Well, and I think what your point is well taken is that we need to start tagging all these homes like we do, appliances. I mean, it's the same thing. They should have the
Cars.
ratings and it should go with the territory.
Well, could I, I didn't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to invite individuals to unmute yourself and ask a question in these last 10 minutes or so.
Yep.
If not, I'll throw a question out there. Starting back with the National Grid, and I can't remember who was talking about it at the time, but the insulation at 75% off, I'm thinking of putting insulation on the outside of my house. Is that covered by the National Grid or Mass Save programs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's probably up to the energy specialist. As long as it does the performance of insulating the home, I think it would qualify. Yeah, I don't know for sure. I mean, I can definitely double check on that. But yeah, I think as long as it, like I said, as long as it does the work of insulating.
And Chris, how about spray foam? Because years ago, we couldn't get Mass
Oh,
Save to provide any spray
I
foam.
would think that it would qualify for the incentive.
Not spray foam.
Sorry, spray foam.
No, spray foam
Um,
is not included in the program.
Still not there. Okay.
Still not. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
totally okay.
Is something being considered or? Melanie?
I think it has been considered, and I can't remember off the top of my head why it hasn't been added.
Yeah.
So
There's certain areas in band joists and roof edges where it's pretty tough to get cellulose to work without moisture issues. So, but that's
We're finding it useful in our 1890s Victorian.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can always do it outside the program. And then there's parts of the building
Sure.
that can then fit within the program, maybe.
David, I have a question. So thanks everybody, but first of all, that all the presentations were excellent, really appreciate it. But my question is for Craig. The home energy scorecard that seems to have gone by the wayside, is that, what's the latest on that? And do you see any value in it if the home energy if the home appraisals are done appropriately, taking sustainability aspects in mind?
Well, home energy scorecard was based on DOE's home energy score. There's also the HERS rating out there, right? So HERS rating is a really useful tool for appraisers to understand, because it's an energy asset rating on the home, just like DOE's home energy score would have done. It never really got implemented in the Massachusetts marketplace, Gary. There's only, I think, about 200 homes that have DOE home energy scores on them. Connecticut is completely different. They with their utility incentive program there, with every home energy assessment that's done now, probably for the last 5 years, they give the home a DOE home energy score as part of the assessment. That hasn't happened in Massachusetts. I'm not sure, there was legislation that was proposed several years ago, and then Governor Baker reproposed it to mandate it at the time of sale. My trade organization, unfortunately, Massachusetts Association of Realtors, strongly opposed that. And there was some valid reasons for doing that. I mean, we'll sell 75,000 homes this month. Do we have enough energy assessors to meet the demand in the marketplace to produce those scorecards, for instance? So, you know, these are all challenging pieces that are out there. But I see HERS score, you know, being used in the marketplace regularly. You know, my home now, even though it's an existing home, we're getting a HERS rating on the home because I know that appraisers recognize that value.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have a ton of detail on the scorecard. I don't work directly on it, but it is something I believe that is rolling out in Massachusetts. It's being worked on with Mass DOER and DOE. If we're talking about the same scorecard, I think we are.
Yeah, we are. It's when audits are done is when it's going to happen. So it won't be on like every home.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other questions from visitors, friends?
There's one in the
Haters?
chat.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So someone in the chat has asked the different types of new HVAC options that National Grid is offering rebates on. So I talked about many of them today with our heat pump offerings. We did offer fuel switching. We rebates for fuel switching heat pumps last term, but we have redesigned the program quite a bit for this new 3-year term with the whole home conversion, rebate, and requiring weatherization for those whole home conversions. We do also offer rebates like we have in the past for your eligible fossil fuel heating system upgrades, and also water heaters. Everything is on masssave.com. I can put a link in the chat here. I think it would be really helpful for folks. So, does that answer your question, Joel? High level, very high level. But.
So we worked with the National Grid Deep Energy Retrofit Program years and years ago with David, I think his last name, but that was discontinued after about 3 or 4 years. Well, both those 2 DERs I showed you, one got like 45 as part of the pilot, 45,000, and then the second one was down to about 21,000, and then I think they've just discontinued. So I don't know if they were talking about it again, but.
And that's for commercial and industrial sector. That's a commercial and industrial program, or was. So, but as far as I know, there aren't plans. But I don't work in the CNI programs very closely.
Right.
So,
yeah. Greg, you haven't heard any more about. You're not getting big rebates for your project, are you? Or
well, I am, but that DER program was phased out several years ago. But right. I would argue that the individual incentives, including the whole house rebate, I mean, we're taking advantage of a ton of them. And it's making, I mean, it's a no-brainer to use those incentives.
Yeah, I'd really be curious to know
what my project.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what you're getting ultimately when you if you want to share that. And I can follow up privately, but I'd be curious to know, because I've got clients similarly who are looking to do this, and they get scared away because of the upfront costs and with no rebates, right? Yeah, that we've, at least the ones that we had before.
We've got another question on the chat. Any advice on decoupling a hot water heater from a gas furnace without having to totally change the system?
oof. I don't think I should be giving anyone like technical advice. So I recommend speaking with an HVAC contractor or signing up for a heating and cooling consultation to speak with an HVAC specialist.
I'm not sure you can take a gas water heater and make it electric without,
Yeah,
starting from scratch. But I think the solar assisted and the solar are going to save you big money over time and totally the way to go.
Mhm.
At least now, if you've got to do a new system.
Yeah, I like the advice of having a consultant look at that specifics. It's really a complicated
Yeah.
equation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you're going to have this for recorded. So I did have a bunch of links, I think, earlier in mind that people can take from the presentation. Weed their way through.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where we will post it, but it will probably be on the Melrose Energy Commission site.
Yep.
That's my guess. Any other questions from the group?
Oh, I think
Oh, I want to thank all the presenters who did a great job today. And even I learned some new things, and I'll share with Craig how many thousands of dollars I'm going to save, maybe. In fact, Craig, I think I need to have you come over for dinner, and I'll have to sit you at the table right next to my wife so you can explain it.
Well, the big one for us was Sal going, getting over the natural gas cooktop to induction. But the more research that we shared and went back and forth with, I mean, it's you have so much control with induction, and they're so safe, from an
Yeah.
air quality perspective, big time. But even being able to just work around the cooktop and not be burned. I mean, it's
my
just a
wife's
huge
chef.
benefit.
My wife's a chef, and I've yet to convince her, Craig. So if you could help me on that, she's getting ready.
Well,
she's a little nervous.
and-
She's been cooking with gas for decades. So
Just like David, invite
Yeah.
Sally and I over, and we'll be happy to talk about it.
I have an induction. I live in a home where it's not possible to get a gas connection. So when we moved in, we switched from an electric stove to an induction, and it's been great. We
Yeah.
love it. And I will say, because I always want to talk about our programs, is that we are going to be rolling out an incentive for customers who want to switch from propane to induction. It will be, I think, $500 incentive, and we're really trying to add gas, a gas to induction rebate, but it's not cost effective right now. So we're going to do a little study and see if we can find, so TBD on that, but we're really hoping.
great.
I hope you don't take this the wrong way, Melanie, but I can't wait to shut off my natural gas account.
No, I might work for National Grid, but even National Grid's vision for the future is reducing, our customer reliance on natural gas. So.
Yeah, the one nice thing about having our backup, we were able to get the heat pump system in without taking out the gas. And when the power goes down and you try to get a generator running your heat pump, it's not going to work so well. So having that ability to pop it on is not a bad deal, but yeah.
Well, you still need electric for the pumps or air system.
Yeah.
So, it's.
Right. Well, as a backup, as I'm saying, it's not a bad backup.
No.
The generator can manage the little pumps that run. It's running all those heat pumps without off a generator would be tough.
Right. But that's
Well,
part of
my
having
next-
a well-insulated house is that your house will then kind of coast through those power outages.
Yeah.
My next piece, don't tell Sally that she's right behind me, is to buy a Ford F-150 Lightning, because then it's got the reverse piece on it where
Oh.
the power can go both ways, and
Yeah.
it's perfect. I mean, that's going to be the backup generator for us, I think.
Good.
Melanie, did you see the question from someone about how to find out about the technical consultant?
Oh, yes, I did.
Is that
And
available
I
now?
accidentally, so I sent it a direct message by mistake to somebody else. So let me just throw it back in to everybody. Here we go.
And just to be clear, Melanie, the consultations are free?
Yep, no
Okay.
cost.
Cool.
We like to say no cost instead of free, since really our programs are ratepayer funded, so.
No cost and free sound great to me.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Did everybody get, sorry, did everyone get that link? Oh, there it is. Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, David, for organizing all this, and Martha, and all of you. It was great to meet you all.
That was well worth it. Glad we could pull it together.
Well, thanks all. Thanks for having Chris and I.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Great job. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Elena.
Sure thing, David. Let me know if there's anything else you need, but I'll drop off otherwise.
All set. Thanks.
Good night.
Night.